All right. Well, hey, it's Friday and we're back and thought we'd have another conversation around maybe an applicable tax or accounting topic. And so today we thought we would talk about these PPP loan forgiveness. So
back in our, still in our home offices, but it gives us the opportunity to do these kinds of things, which I think are good. So yeah, a couple of things that happened this last week. I think it was a week ago today that the SBA released the PPP loan forgiveness application, which was really big news. I think a lot of people on the front end, when they borrowed PPP funds, knew that there was this potential for forgiveness. This application for forgiveness, I think, really provided a lot of clarity and insight into how this whole thing is going to work, to give businesses kind of the ability to forecast out to the end of their 8-week period and kind of make some plans for what they need to do.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, when the PPP loan came out, you know, they were making this legislation up as they went along and people were applying it, but nobody knew exactly, am I going to be able to get forgiven? How does it work? You know, we were constantly looking at those frequently asked questions, like it seemed like something was coming out every day. So I think the first thing that at least I had written down is when does that period start? You know, that 8-week period to get your loan forgiven. And so they came out and they said that there was 2 different periods that you could choose from. One was, hey, the day that you actually get the money that's deposited in your account, that 8 weeks start at that point, or you can elect to do an alternative and have it based upon the first day of your pay period. That way you kind of maximize getting that PPP loan forgiveness and get as many of the payrolls in there as you can.
And the other thing that I think this was new information to people. People were looking for clarity on this, but the definition of wages that can be included in the calculation for both the forgiveness and the qualification for having spent the 75% on payroll includes not only wages that were paid, actually dispersed during that 8-week period, but also includes wages that were incurred during that 8-week period, even if they were paid after that 8-week period. I think you even, Steve, know a little more specific.
Yeah. I mean, I think on that one, at least I had heard that, yeah, you can accrue back. And as long as for the payroll taxes specifically, as long as those payroll taxes are paid before the next pay period starts or before the next pay period is paid, you can accrue those payroll taxes for sure back.
And I've done the application too for a client, and it also includes not only payroll taxes, but wages that are accrued during that period.
You know, one question I had actually that was brought up today was,
I may not know the answer, but go ahead.
Well, you know, in payroll costs, does payroll taxes include payroll cost in the payroll costs portion?
I think it does.
Yeah, I think it does too. It says, I was looking at it, it says state and local taxes, but it doesn't say anything about federal taxes, but I think, oh man, it's got to include that.
I think it's all related payroll costs, which I believe include health insurance and retirement contributions. The interesting thing there, I had a client ask me about if I make a payment during the 8-week period of my employer match, that includes a pay period that's not in that 8-week period, does it still count?
Mm-hmm.
And I did a little bit of research on this, and of course the real answer is there's no information to know for sure.
Yeah.
The wording in the CARES Act says, I'm not going to remember the specific wording, but it says something like all amounts of retirement contributions, which makes it sound like any retirement contribution made during that 8-week period, whether it was for wages earned during that 8-week period or not. So please don't hear me wrong. I'm saying that we don't know this for sure. But it seems that the language of the CARES Act seems to indicate that.
So there was some new guidance. I know that the House passed a measure related to kind of the loan forgiveness and some changes related to that. Maybe you kind of know this a little
Yeah.
bit.
Yeah, and it's not guidance, but it's an indication that the government realizes that there's a problem with a couple of things in the PPP loan and that they're working to correct it. So the House passed a bill that, among other things, would make two, I think, really welcome changes to the PPP forgiveness. One is it would reduce the portion of the PPP funds that need to be spent on payroll from 75% down to 60%. So it would give a business a little more flexibility to, spend that 40% on rent and utilities and other allowable costs under the PPP loan. And I think this is great. I've got a client whose business is seasonal, and during the summer their payroll drops off. So their measurement period for the borrowings was when they had higher payrolls, and now they're entering into this period where their payroll drops off a little bit anyways. It's around the school year and when kids are out, things like that.
So in that case, they wouldn't get as much forgiven then if they.
That's right. So I've been helping them fill out the application or look at the application, and I'm starting to worry about them being able to even meet that 75% number. So this is going to help them.
Yeah.
And then the other thing that will really help them, that I think a lot of businesses are happy about, is this bill from the House extends that 8-week period to actually a 6-month period. So instead of businesses just like desperately looking to spend this money, it gives them plenty of time to do it within just the way that works best for their business. If they're seasonal or they're trying to get their employees ramped up again and things like that, it just extends the period of time so they don't have to panic and spend those funds for them to be qualified. So it's just a bill that's been passed by the House. It goes to the Senate, and then they all vote together, and then the president has to sign it. Yeah. I feel like I'm recounting Schoolhouse Rock.
I know exactly. It's a bill.
Anyways, but from every indication, there's really bipartisan support for these changes to be made. So I'm really hopeful that early next week we'll be looking at this being passed.
Yeah.
Good news for our clients. So just a couple other things that might be helpful. Like I said, I've been helping a client through this application a little bit on a spreadsheet that the AICPA has put out that supports the PPP forgiveness application. It is a detailed process. You're going to need to gather your employee data on an employee by employee basis and report their number of weeks, their hours worked both during the first quarter of 2020 as well as during your 8-week measurement period. So be ready to put a lot of time into doing this work. Mm-hmm. And by the way, for our clients, we can help you do this. If you want our assistance in putting together this information, we can. And I also noted we use ADP, and I was looking at ADP just for payroll reports the other day and noticed they've got a PPP forgiveness wage report where you enter in the date that the funds were dispersed to you. Yeah. And ADP will automatically generate a report that includes the data that you need for that forgiveness application.
So you'd have to make sure you enter the hours in, I would guess, on that.
Yeah, there certainly may be some. It may not have every single last thing you need, but it's certainly helpful.
Because I think that was one thing I saw too, which was calculating the full-time equivalents. I've been searching for that since this thing came out. Is it based on 30 hours? Is it based upon 40 hours? How do you determine a full-time equivalent? I saw finally that they came out and they said that it was 40 hours was the calculation to determine a full-time equivalent.
Yeah. Yeah.
Cool.
All right. Well, that's the latest.
Yeah. Good update. So.
Yeah. All right, everybody. Be well, and we'll see you soon.
All right. Thanks.